Hello everyone, welcome you all to the virtual school. First of all, I would like to tell you, if you are new to my channel, please like, share and subscribe the content because it really motivates me and to put up more stuff and better stuff. So please do that. So let's now straight away get to the next lecture. In this lecture, we will be discussing the functions in Python. So basically, why the functions are used and how they are defined and what types of functions are used. Okay, so we would be continuing because in the earlier lecture we left at the comments. Okay, and after that we will be discussing these functions now. Okay, so what are the functions? So functions are basically a set of statements that you execute to perform certain set of operations and get certain set of output. Okay, so it's basically like it's like a black box in which you put certain set of values, and from one end and from the other end you get a certain output that you desire. Okay, like suppose you have a function to calculate the area of a circle, so you provide a radius and you get the area of a circle. And how you get it? Because you have written certain statements in the functions that compute the area of the circle. Okay, a function can be both parameterized and not parameterized. Okay, that is, a function can accept parameters as it's within the circular braces. I will show to you when you will write the programs, but just now a function can take certain parameters on it, or if there is need, and also if it cannot take certain parameters, if there is no need of parameters to be sent. For example, if you want to show a introductory message just as your program starts, okay, for that you need to print a statement, and suppose that print statement is put in a function, and that function is named like display welcome message. Okay, and then you call that function, so you don't need to send any parameters because the simple use of that function is to display an introductory message like welcome to the virtual school. Okay, so that is an example of a non-parameterized function. Now for a parameterized function, like I gave the example of the function accepting a radius and giving the area of the circle. Now that function is accepting radius as its parameter to be sent, and on that radius it calculates the area of the circle. So that is a parameterized function. Okay, so this is just gist of certain set of functions that you will be using later on. So now let's straight away get to the subdivisions of the functions. In the Python, the functions can be modules, it can be built-in, and it can be user-defined. Now what are these different categories? Let's dive into that. The modules are certain, like see, like Python is what, it's a programming language with a very large community. Okay, now there are some standard library content, or there are some standard functions that are already inbuilt in the that is provided with the Python, which is generally used by all Python programmers. Okay, because every day the community is growing day by day, and new and new programmers are just enhancing the Python more and more by including more and more modules. Because as you can see, the Python was earlier like it was running 2.7 and now it is 3.8. The latest one is 3.8. So all these versions there are certain upgrades that is provided to this programming language. Okay, so what are the modules? The modules is a file containing Python definition. A standard library of Python is extended as module to a programmer. Okay, now the standard library Python has these certain modules which a programmer can use whenever it requires. Like for example, and how you do this? How you do this? You do this by using the import or the from statement. Now what is the syntax of these statements? Okay, the import is very simple, like you have to write the import and you have to write the module name, and that module would be included in the program itself. Okay, now in the from, when you use the word from, now from has following syntax, like from a particular module you want to import a particular function. You don't need all of the function, and you need only a certain function, then you use the word from. Now what is the difference between using import and using from? The import includes the entire module itself. Okay, like suppose a module has 100 functions and you need only 2 of the functions, and you use the import and then you write that module's name. Okay, now what Python will do, it will import all the 100 functions, it does not care whether you use 2 functions from it or 3 functions from it, because you have used the word import and you have written the module's name, then all the functions of that module would be made accessible to you. Okay, but most of the programmers, because as you will go into the industry and you will write certain programs in there, space complexity and time complexity is a very critical parameters on which any program is tested. Okay, like suppose if you are importing modules, so what you are doing is you are importing all those definitions in your program. So despite your program must have weighed around few millibytes or like few bytes only, okay, but because you have imported certain modules, the weight of that program has increased. Okay, and hence the computation or the and it is providing a certain set of overhead on your program. Okay, certain complexity overhead on your program. Okay, so what the programmer does is it uses the from, and by using the from, it imports only those functions that is needed from a particular modules, because that is a more efficient way of using. Okay, okay, now we will see the examples. Like suppose if you are importing a math is a module. It has almost all the necessary mathematical functions that can be used in a computation. Okay, now what you have to do, you have to simply import math, and you can calculate a power of a function or square root of a square root of a variable. Okay, now it is used for that. For knowing about the math, you need to get into the library which is listed in the Python original docs. Okay, there you will find any number of functions. Okay, I will show you all of them soon, but let's just stick to the definitions and the theoretical part. Okay, like suppose here is the example, import math, and here we are taking a number as an input, and we are calculating its square root, and we are calculating its power. Okay, and we are displaying the square root and the power similarly, the square value of that. Okay, uh, so this is a simple program. Now when we use for program, the from statement, okay, then we here you have used import math, so all the mathematical functions are available, and you are using only square root and power function from it. Now suppose if you have used from, and you have specifically quoted that from math import sqrt and pow, then what Python had done is it has included only sqrt and pow from this module, from math module. Okay, and you can use it in a similar way. Okay, you don't have to write the notation like math.sqrt, because that function is specifically made available to you, so you can use it straight away. Okay, so this is the main definition between from and import, and that is how the modules are used in the Python. Okay, similarly, there are other functions that you can use in the math module. There is ceil function, floor function, absolute function, exponential functions, log, and various others. Okay, I want you all to get them one by one and search about them and learn about them, because you would be using them once you would be programming. These are very high level functions, but there is a probability that the questions can be asked as what is the definition of this, or why it is used, and what about it. Okay, so similarly, okay, now let's get to the second type of function, that is the built-in functions. Now the built-in functions are the functions for which you don't need to import any module, and the Python provided by default, and it is accessible to you in the any Python file, and you don't need to write any import functions for it. Okay, so these are the built-in functions, that these are the most necessary functions that are provided by default by the Python. Okay, now what are these functions? Let's see some example, like absolute, max, min, bin, div mod. Okay, chr, that is character, float, int, long. Like when you typecast a particular variable, a particular value, like you change a string to an integer, then you can use int or long or str similarly. Okay, so these are the built-in functions that is provided by the Python. For these you need to I want to make clear that the modules requires the import or the from statement, but the built-in function does not require any import or the from statement. Okay, these are provided to you by default. Okay, now the third type is the user defined functions. Okay, Now the user defined functions are the functions that are defined by the user, as you can say by the name, that these functions are declared by the user and is used accordingly. Okay, like suppose you make up a function which provides the area of the square, rectangle and the circle. Okay, now this function is not defined in the Python already. This is something on your custom needs. Okay, because when you would be programming, you would be needing to design certain functions according to the need of the program that you want to perform, or according to your own need. If you want to perform certain set of operations, all the operations can't be provided in the Python itself. Okay, you need, for those you need to design your own functions. Okay, now these functions are the user defined functions. Now for these you need to use the following syntax, like you have to use the def, then you have to provide the name of your function, and then you have to provide any parameter, or if it does not require any parameter, then you have to leave this area as blank and you have to just use the circular brackets. Okay, now let's see an example. There is a simple program to calculate the simple interest. Okay, like we know that the simple interest formula is PRT by 100. Okay, now here is a function that is SI is the function, that is simple interest, and we have used def SI, and then we have used PR into T, PR and T as the parameters, and what we are returning, P into R into T. So basically we are returning the simple interest of the calculated value. Okay, now for using it, it is simple. We have called SI and then we have passed the parameters and we got the output. Okay, so these are what? These are user defined function. Why these are user defined function? Because user needs to perform certain custom operations that is needed by him. Okay, so for that you need to define your own functions, you need to create your own function calls, and you need to get the desired output accordingly. Okay, so this is something very this is by far the most interesting part of the Python, because here you get to code and you don't need to use the already built function. And by the way, I can tell you that all these functions, the sqrt, the power function, is also a certain they were also certain at certain level were user defined, and then they were included as a module or as a built-in function in the Python. Okay, because Python is a language that is built by humans only, no? Okay, so these functions were also written in certain way, and after a while when they were found as the most necessary ones, then then they were included as the built-in functions, or they were provided as the module. Okay, so you can also write your own functions and you can also design them. This is what makes the programming most fun. Okay, so here we will conclude our functions part. Okay, now in the next lecture we would be discussing the parameters and the arguments, and we will continue our discussion from there. Okay, so thank you. If you liked our content, kindly like, share and subscribe us so that we get motivated and we can provide you more informative videos on the same subject.